In this video, I'm going to take a look at the Petri C.C. Auto 50 f1.7, a lens I'd rank at number 4 in my list of the top 5 Petri fast 50s. I'm posting separate videos on each of the other 4 Petris, and if you're interested in learning more about Petri, a Japanese company that sold a range of SLR cameras between 1959 and the 1970s, then I posted an introductory video on them. And as I explained in the introductory video, I've used these 4 main criteria for ranking the Petri fast 50s. This 50 f1.7 is an M42 mount lens, and my copy came on a Petri MF1 camera dating to around 1977. The gear was made at a time that Petri was losing money and going bankrupt, and there is a really obvious downgrading in the physical build of the camera and lens compared to the early Petri cameras, such as this Petri Flex from 1961. The MF1 feels plasticky, nothing like the all-metal quality of the early Petri SLRs, and the same applies to the plasticky feel of the lens, nothing like as impressive as this Bayashi Petri 55f2. Not that plastic bodies are a huge problem in terms of how lenses perform, as long as the key parts are made of glass and metal, the lens mounts, the inside aperture mechanism for example. My lens has clearly had a relatively hard life, but it still works just fine. The lens itself intrigues me because the prices online are all over the place. Some Japanese sites are quoting a lot of money for this lens, more money than the price of many other standard M42 fast 50s, including what I'd consider to be more desirable Petri lenses. On the other hand, I got lucky and found both the camera and lens online not so long ago for just £35. I'm not exactly sure why some of the prices are so high. Perhaps it's because it's one of the rarer Petri lenses, or has a cult following in Japan. If anyone knows, I'd be very interested to hear about it. So what's the lens like? What's all the fuss about? The build quality, as I've already mentioned, isn't great. The focus throw, with that plastic and rubber focus ring, doesn't feel good. But the glass is good. The lens's design comprises of 6 elements in 4 groups, a double Gauss derivative. In common with most, but not all Petri fast 50s, it has 6 aperture blades and a clicked aperture mechanism, a change from the clickless mechanisms of a number of other Petris. It has a minimum focus distance of 0.6 meters, not great for close-up shots, but pretty standard for the time. Performance is good as you go from stop down to wide open. Wide open, the lens is acceptably sharp, not the sharpest I've seen from an f1.7 or f1.8 lens, but it's perfectly serviceable, so you don't have to stop down to get usable results. I'll talk about the wide open bokeh in a minute. Like the Petri 55 f1.4, the lens's ability to control chromatic aberrations, purple fringing, wide open in bright light is excellent. The lens doesn't flare extravagantly if you use a good hood. Stop down, the lens is impressively sharp, and the colours are good, they look natural. This shot shows just how sharp the lens can be, starting with the lens wide open, and I'll zoom into the magnolia and focus. This level of detail is good for a wide open image, I think. After zooming out again, I'll transition to a stop down shot. Then I've taken a crop of the in-focus magnolia from the full frame size image, and the sharpness here is really good. The Petri is by no means the only old 50 that performs well stop down, but I must say this lens is a very good performer. I've no doubt the lens would make a very effective portrait lens, but I'm afraid I don't have any suitable human photos to demonstrate this. When I mentioned to my nearest and dearest that I needed some more photos of them for this lens, on top of all the other lenses, everyone quickly scarpered out of sight. Now, to see how good this lens is in terms of its bokeh rendering, I took some shots to compare the f1.7 with the fastest Petri lens, the 55 f1.4, of things that couldn't run away. First of all, it's clear from the results that the extra 5mm focal length of the faster lens does make a significant difference. Both lenses have a minimum focal distance of 0.6 meters, but that extra 5mm gives the faster lens a closer framing. And this in turn produces smoother out-of-focus blur and bigger bokeh bubbles. But looking at close-ups wide open, I'm not always a big fan of the tighter frame perspective provided by the 55mm lens. I think this shot on the right lacks the context and the interest that the 50mm lens provides. So when I was shooting these comparisons, I found myself stepping back quite a lot with the 55mm to get the same kind of framing as the 50. If you do equalize the focal distance, you can still see a difference in the depth of field and the slightly larger size of the bokeh bubbles from the faster lens, but the differences are not as much as you might expect. The f1.4's blur is a little smoother, while the f1.7 renders a few more details in the background. Overall, I found myself preferring the f1.7's slightly busier backgrounds in many of the wide-open compositions. There's more going on, and there's more to catch the eye. Yes, the f1.4 can deliver very soft background blur in the right conditions, if you want that kind of subject isolation. But the f1.7 can do this too, if you're careful with your compositions. When I first got this lens, I thought it looked and felt like a piece of you-know-what, compared to earlier Petri lenses. And when I first started using the lens, I thought it was a good lens, but it didn't seem to be particularly special, especially compared to some of the other Petri lenses I already owned. However, the more I've used it, and taken head-to-head comparisons with the Petri 55 f1.4, I've changed my mind, given how well the f1.7 performed. Normally I prefer smooth bokeh rendering, but with the Petri f1.7 I prefer the extra texture in the background blur, and you can't successfully stop the f1.4 down for this texture, because then you get some ugly hexagon highlights from the lens's 6 blades. Ultimately, of course, with this extra texture, it's all a matter of personal taste, and you may not agree with me. An important additional factor in its favour, as far as I'm concerned, is that it's an M42 lens, not a Petri breech lock mount lens, like the f1.4. It's so much easier to adapt to digital cameras, and there are no issues using the lens at infinity. I still don't think the f1.7 is worth some of the prices being quoted online in Japan, unless you're a very dedicated collector of Petri lenses, and you just have to own this lens. And while I like the lens's wide-open rendering very much, there are Petri Fast 50s that I would rank higher than this one for their even more interesting or unique results. All your comments on this lens, especially if you own one, will be most appreciated. I'll provide a link to my other reviews of the Petri lenses as I post them in the description below. And until the next time, all the best.